Hi, it's Steph, and we're at Lowe's, and they have some great plants for late season color as well as fall planting, and the clearance racks are really starting to pile up. So let's go ahead and take a look at the August inventory at Lowe's. Ornamental grasses. These are wonderful in the landscape. Not only do they provide a lot of texture and movement with the breeze, but they also offer a really great option for late season color. As we head into the fall, you'll get these beautiful plumes, which are considered the blooms on grasses, and they just look really pretty and soft in the landscape. And if you decide to leave them up over the winter, they provide habitat for birds and insects. They feed off of the seeds, and if you live in an area that you get snow, they look really pretty catching the snow. So this one here is a great variety that I actually have in my garden, and I really enjoy it because it is a low growing grass called the Hamlin dwarf fountain grass. You can see here in the photo how it gets filled with these beautiful plumes, and when the sun catches them, they just look so pretty. They are hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. They get to be an average size of 20 inches in height by 20 inches in width. And these here are just about a 1.5 gallon container for $14.98. And a little blue stem. Now this is a native variety of dwarf ornamental grass, and it has this steel blue coloring to it. It is really sharp and upright and also stays pretty compact. So the size on the blue's little blue stem grass is 24 to 36 inches in height and 24 to 36 inches in width. It likes full sun, and it is hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now all of these 1.5 gallon containers are $14.98, and all ornamental grasses like full sun, with the exception of the Coneflower, which is the Japanese forest grass. Those are more of a shade ornamental grass, but these are also really pretty for vertical interest in the garden. And then there's this gorgeous ornamental grass. This is the purple fountain grass. It is so eye-catching and beautiful, but unlike the little blue stem and Hamlin that we just looked at that are perennial, this is only an annual grass. So I made the mistake of planting this one when I was a newer gardener, did not know that it would not return for me as perennial, and I was quite disappointed, but I have used it as a centerpiece in my annual containers ever since because I absolutely love it. It is gorgeous. It has this deep purple foliage color. It's like a burgundy, and then it starts getting these plumes as we head into the later part of summer and into the fall. I have these in my front porch containers and my driveway containers, and I absolutely love it. So these here are also in a 1.5 gallon container. They are $15.98, but these would look beautiful in a fall arrangement, or if you're looking to give your summer containers a bit of a refresh. I often have viewers tell me that my store is so well stocked and has so many things, and it typically does. But as we head into August, things are looking pretty bare. But the good thing is that the plants they have available are good for late season color and fall planting. And I always recommend visiting the nurseries and garden centers throughout the whole season so that you can have a garden that blooms from spring through fall. So it is still a good time to go shopping, and you can find some really good end of season deals. And we're going to look at a few of those here, but first let's look at a few more perennials. Now this one here is a great perennial for long season color, and what I like about this one is that even when all of the petals drop off of the bloom, you still have these little ball shaped or sphere shaped bloom heads that are really interesting to look at. They look very similar to something like Spyrhea, which is an annual I'm growing this year. So they are really pretty. Now I typically have cool colors in my garden, and this is what I would consider a warm color, colors like reds and oranges and yellows. And so this is not a plant that I currently grow, but I can appreciate how pretty it is. And the foliage even has a hint of a blue-gray to it. So all in all, a really pretty and a workhorse perennial for your garden, especially if you prefer these colors like the reds and oranges and yellows. Now this is blanket flower or Arborvitae, and this variety is the Arizona sun blanket flower. It is very hardy, down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Gets to be 12 inches in height, 12 inches in width, and it likes full sun. This is also a perennial that spreads pretty well. I did have it in my garden way back when for a short period of time, and then because I didn't love the colors, I ended up giving it away. But it did self-seed pretty well for me in the couple of seasons that I had it growing. So this is a really great perennial for your garden, and it would look pretty in a container as we head into fall. I had a viewer recently mention that they picked up one of these that was more in this golden yellow with a hint of orange. I believe it was called something mango, which would also be another great option in the gaillardia or blanket flower. And we can't talk about workhorse perennials without bringing up the tick seed or coreopsis. Now, these also come in quite a few different colorways. I have one in my garden called Moonshine, and it's a really light, pretty yellow, soft yellow. And then look at this one here with almost like this fuchsia maroon color in the center that fades to a bit of a cream with a hint of yellow. So this one is called, let's find out here. This is the Lowe Candy Stripe Coreopsis. It's a mounding perennial. It is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets to be 8 to 12 inches in height and 12 to 18 inches in width. It likes full sun, and you can see that this one always has a ton of buds on it. Now, these plants that have a mounding habit with all of these buds can sometimes be difficult to deadhead because it would be quite tedious to go through and find each one of these spent flowers, follow the stem down and cut it. So what you can do is once the plant has most of the buds that look like they've been done blooming, then you can go through and kind of shear back the whole plant, give it a little bit of a haircut, and then it'll start to flush back out, rebud, and give you some more blooms. So this is an example of one that has quite a few spent blooms on it. I would just shear it right back and it will rebound in no time. Now this golden yellow one is also very pretty, and it has just a smaller splash of color in the center, also a shade of maroon, and this is called the Sunkiss Coreopsis, and it also is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit and similar sizing at 12 to 14 inches in height and 14 to 16 inches in width. Also a full sun perennial, and these are still full priced at $8.98 in the Lowe's house brand containers. Now, it's funny how all of the plants that do really well heading into late summer and fall tend to be in these sunset colors, these warm colors. I always find that really interesting. And some yarrow. Now, yarrow, also known as Achillea, has a really interesting foliage because it's almost like fern-like, right? It's different than all of the other foliage that you'll have in the garden, so they provide a nice textural contrast. But they also have really pretty blooms, and these blooms, to me, I find really cool because they age all different colors. Now, the yellow will mostly just fade from this deeper yellow to a lighter yellow, but some of the pinks and the reds will go through several color changes as they start to bloom until the time that they age. So on one plant, it will look like you have several colors. Now, this is a really popular variety because the Moonshine yarrow has this silvery blue-gray coloring to the foliage, where most other varieties are just green but still have this ferny texture. This one is a summer bloomer, and it will sometimes bloom into the fall with some deadheading. It'll get sporadic reblooming. It does like full sun. Yarrow likes a very well-draining soil that is in full sun. Otherwise, it will flop, and if you give it too much water, it can rot at the crown, and then you'll lose your plant. It's happened to me before, so I'm familiar with that. Zone 4 is where it's hardy until a negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 18 to 24 inches in height and 12 to 15 inches in width. And look at this beauty. This is the Indian Summer Daisy, and I'm backing up so you can see how tall it is. This is about a 2.5 to 3 foot high plant. So it would require some staking in the landscape, or you can plant it between other perennials that will hold it upright in case it gets windy. But it has these really large blooms. It's very similar to Rudbeckia, but it's a larger version. In fact, it looks very much like the Prairie Sun Rudbeckia. And I just love how eye-catching these blooms are. The pollinators also love it. Look at the size of this one here. It's as big as a sunflower, I would say, like a small sunflower. Really, really pretty and eye-catching. definitely demands your attention. And so here is the information. It is considered a perennial. It likes full sun. It blooms summer and fall. And in order to keep these plants reblooming, what you want to do is anytime that you see a spent bloom on it, something that is now faded, done blooming, follow that stem down and cut it to the next set of buds or blooms. So right here is where you would cut that, because you can see there's already another bloom coming up on this stem. And let's check out the specs on it. So full sun, and it gets to be 24 inches in height, 18 inches in width. So definitely a 2 to 3 foot high perennial. Hardy down to a zone 5 or negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are in a decorative planter that you can then use somewhere else in the landscape if you choose to do so. This is another beauty. It has a green eye instead of having the brown center that you typically see on Rudbeckias or Black-Eyed Susans. And this one here looks like it got a little bit tall for its container. Some of them are leaning, but once you plant them out in the landscape, you can give them a little bit of a trim and straighten out that root ball to get them growing upright. Maybe even provide a little staking while it's establishing to get its roots situated. So this here is called the Rudbeckia Ophelia. It does like full sun. It blooms summer and fall. These are $24.98 for these decorative containers, and it is hardy only to a zone 7, so 10 degrees. Now you see, I am here gardening in a zone 6B, 7A. So if I purchased this for my garden and planted it thinking it's perennial, but we had an exceptionally cold winter, this wouldn't return for me next season. So at $24.98, I probably wouldn't take the risk on this plant if it was only borderline for my zone. So that is just my opinion and my suggestion, but I will tell you, it is a really beautiful plant, very, very eye-catching. And the beautiful coneflower or echinacea. This is one of my favorite perennials. And this one here is the Cheyenne Spirit. And do you see all of the beautiful colors that this plant produces? So the Cheyenne Spirit, I am yet to figure out if it is a single plant that gets a wide range of colors from golden yellows, corals, oranges, reds, and creams, or if it is multiple plants in one container. So if I look at this one here, it does look like there are multiple plants in one container, and each of the plants is producing a different color. And that is how I think that this plant grows. So you plant it in a clump and then you'll get these multiple colors. It looks like a rainbow of coneflowers. It is gorgeous. And they still have quite a few containers here at my Lowe's. These are by Monrovia, and they are $13.98 for the Cheyenne Spirit coneflower. All coneflowers like full sun and a very well draining soil. Again, they are susceptible to crown rot, so if you give them too much moisture, they will rot and not return. The bunnies also tend to like coneflowers, so I do have to apply a repellent to keep them away. They usually munch on the lower leaves and any of the blooms that they can reach, but the ones up higher, they tend to leave alone. This variety grows to be 24 to 36 inches in height, 18 to 24 inches in width, and it blooms summer through fall. It needs at least 6+ hours of direct sun per day in order for it to bloom best. And the pollinators absolutely love it. What's great about coneflowers as well is that even once the blooms are spent, you can leave up the stem with this beautiful cone, and the birds love to snack on the seeds, especially the goldfinches. There's a couple of other varieties of coneflower as well. This one here is the Sombrero Lemon yellow coneflower, and they mostly all grow around the same size, usually on average about 24 inches in size. So this one is 18 to 24 inches in height, 18 inches in width, also hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and blooms summer through fall. So very similar growing conditions and sizes for most of the echinacea. The one that I find that grows the largest or the tallest is the native Echinacea purpurea. That one can get upwards of 4 feet in height. But look at this really soft yellow color on this lemon variety. Very pretty. And then right beside it is a Sombrero Sangrita coneflower. It looks more like a shade of red. These are $10.98, also very pretty. And then this one is also the Sangrita, but I believe they also have the adobo, because this orange one, yes, Sombrero Adobo Orange Coneflower, also $10.98, and look at that, so pretty. This is also the adobo coneflower, but look what happens to the colors as they fade. They start to turn a bit pink, so very interesting. Coneflowers are gorgeous. They also last for a super long time. Mine will start blooming in my garden in July, and I will continue to get blooms all the way through usually the end of August, beginning of September. If I deadhead them, I'll get more blooms out of them. Not as many as you get from the first flush, but you do get more. You see that? So it's looking pretty bare here, but they still have tons of coneflowers. And if I turn you around, look at all the orange ones. So pretty. There are always bees all over these. They're gorgeous. And garden phlox. I currently still have some phlox looking really beautiful in my garden. It is a very similar color. I have it in my front border, and this is a perennial that will bloom for a long time. And you can get garden phlox in different heights, different colors, different bloom times. You start in the spring with the creeping phlox, which is more of a ground cover. And then there is also woodland phloxes that you can get for a part shade area. But these garden phloxes mostly show up in mid to late summer, and they like a full sun location. And they also like to be properly spaced because they are susceptible to something called powdery mildew. So if you give it proper spacing, you can ensure proper airflow around the plant to prevent some of that. So this here is called the flame coral garden phlox. Most phloxes like full sun. It's a mounding perennial. These are 1998, but you can see that there looks to be about 3 plants in here. So you could divide this and plant it out. Sure, they'll be smaller, but in subsequent years they'll be bigger, and you'll have gotten multiple plants out of one container. This variety gets to be 18 inches in height, 10 to 14 inches in width, and it is hardy down to a zone 3 or negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And it says that it is deer resistant, and I could vouch for that because the deer do not seem to touch the phlox in my garden, which is great. And you can see they have lots of bloom buds still getting ready to open up, and even some more side shoots that are growing on the plant that will provide you with even more blooms. So this is a really long blooming perennial. And here's a really interesting perennial by Proven Winners. It has this variegated foliage, look at that, and a roughly golden yellow bloom. So this is the, let's see, pollinator favorite cut flower native perennial. It is the bit of honey Heliopsis. Now Heliopsis are great for late season color. These are a 2-quart container for $12.98, and they get to be 26 to 30 inches for width, and they get 24 to 28 inches in height. Blooms midsummer through late summer. So not only is the foliage really pretty, but the blooms are as well, with that double layer of petals. There aren't a ton of new shrubs, but my guess is that they will still get a shipment in time for fall planting, because fall is a great time to plant shrubs and trees and even perennials. If you pick up perennials on clearance, plant them out. They will be beautiful next season, and you got them at a discounted rate. But in the fall, it's a great time to plant because you typically have cooler temperatures, more rainfall, which means less stress on your plants, and it gives them some time to establish some roots before the winter kicks in and the ground freezes. Look at this one here. It's Leucocoe. I believe that's how you say it. Let me show you the tag here. Scarletta leucothoe. And it is called the Zeblid variety. It's part sun plant, stays compact, dramatic foliage. It really does have gorgeous foliage. It is so shiny. It has this hint of red to the new growth. Really pretty. Let's see how big it gets. So this one gets to be 4 feet in width, 2 feet in height. So nice, short, compact, mounded growth habit shrub. It likes part sun. It is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or in zones 5 through 8. And it is moderately growing. And these are $56.98, a Monrovia shrub. It's actually pronounced Leucocoe. I just looked it up, and when I was filming it, I noticed this red strike through the barcode, which means it's on clearance. As I walked down a little bit more, I saw the clearance sign, and it looks like this table of shrubs, most of them have red strikes through the barcode. They're all on clearance, and most of them are going to fall in this $15 and up price point, which means they'll be 50% off, which is excellent. So get out there and start looking, because the end of season markdowns have begun. They have these hollies, and you can see how much growth this has put on. This is all new growth coming off the top of this holly shrub. This is a Luxus Compact Japanese Holly, also 50% off. So it'd be about what, $26, $26.50. And this one gets to be 2 feet tall and wide, grows in a rounded shape, hardy in zone 6 through 9 or down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And then here's another holly. Now this is a berry bearing holly. You can see there are already some berries on it, which means it's a female holly. Now with hollies, in most cases, the ones that bear berries, they're going to be female, but you need a male pollinator nearby in order to get those berries. And it could be that your neighbor has a holly planted in their garden and you can pollinate yours that way. But if you find that your female berry is not giving you berries after a couple of seasons, it might be time to plant a male version. And it will tell you on the tag. So this is the Berry Magic Kids Holly combination, and it's a blue girl and blue boy. So this is actually a hybrid. There are 2 planted or grafted together, so you will get berries from this one holly shrub. That is really cool. $44.98, 50% off, so this would be about $22.50. And it gets to be 6 to 8 feet tall, 3 to 6 feet wide, and it is hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty to cut stems of this for decorating your winter containers outdoors or even bringing them indoors. I love to decorate with evergreen cuttings around the holidays. This is a beauty. It's not going to last long. One of my favorite things to plant in my garden are conifers, because living in the Northeast, they provide color all year round. So don't forget to plant those structural or the bones of the garden, the trees, the shrubs, the evergreens. So this is a dwarf globe blue spruce. It grows in a rounded habit, and it's pretty compact, getting to be 3 to 5 feet tall and 5 to 6 feet wide, very hardy, down to negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is hardy in zones 2 through 8. It's a beauty. So $129, this would be about $60, which is a great price for this conifer. They also have some Spyrhea shrubs over here on the clearance area. So you can see they're also marked down. There are some first editions, 2 gallons, they're $27.98, so they'd be about $14. Excellent price. They also have some proven winners, ones on that side. So this first editions version is the Superstar Spyrhea, and it gets to be 2 to 3 feet in height, 3 to 4 feet in width, and hardy in zones 3 through 8. It likes full sun. Most Spyrheas are a part sun to sun shrub. This one actually looks like it's putting on another set of blooms. So if you were to take this home, you just want to keep it well watered, cut off all of this old growth to clean up the plant, and then you still have some more blooms coming and new foliage. This one's actually already started to open up. So lots of life left in these clearance plants. So don't be afraid to buy them, friends. Poke your finger in the soil, make sure they're still being watered and taken care of. Take them home, give them a nice deep drink of water, keep them in a shady spot for a day or 2 to acclimate while you clean it up, and then plant it out in the garden. You can still plant in August. You just have to make sure that you keep things well watered. Now this is another Spyrhea. It's a little bit wild looking. Spyrhea Van Houtai. Blooms in spring. $19.98 for this one, so it would also be 50% off at about $10. As far as the proven winners clearance Spyrhea, they have the Double Play Artisan, which also has some new growth and some buds coming onto it. So you would just, again, clean off all of these dried buds, give it a little bit of a trim, take off all of these dead wood sticks or stems. Now this variety, the Double Play Artisan, gets to be 2 to 2.5 feet tall and wide, so very compact, hardy in zones 3 through 8, and it likes sun or part shade. And it blooms with beautiful clusters of pink blooms. And they also have the Double Play Big Bang, which has more of a lighter green color foliage, a bit of chartreuse to it, pink bloom clusters. Size is similar, 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, and also hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It's also a sun or part sun shrub. And these at $27.98 would be about $14. And some clearance perennials. So these are daylilies. Now you can see that they look worse for the wear, but all you have to do is cut them back down, water them, plant them in your garden, and they will be beautiful next year. And this variety is actually really pretty. It's the Rainbow Rhythm Sound of My Heart daylilies. Full sun, and they are a 1 gallon container for $15.98, so they'd be about $8. And these are super easy, hardy plants, tough as nails. You can't kill them. You pretty much just cut them down, plant them, they'll reflush with new blooms. And you can see by looking at these containers, you can even divide them. They look like there is multiple fans coming out of here. So you could get like 4 clusters of plants out of one of these for $8, making them about $2 a plant. And right off the bat, you can start a little drift of these in your landscape or borders. And every year the clump will get a little bit bigger. And some more clearance. They have the Amazing Daisies Banana Cream on clearance as well. So $15.98. Because they're over $15, it would be half off at about $8.50 for these. You can see there are still lots of green on these plants and even new buds coming up. So this is a great pickup at half off. Perennials in general, because they return year after year. They're moist, so they're still being watered, which is excellent. And right above me, they also have the Midnight Masquerade Penstemon, which is another wonderful perennial. In fact, I love it in my garden. It has these dark stems, these gorgeous blooms in about mid to late June in my garden. And even the seed pods are really beautiful. So here is the information on that one. It would also be about $8 for the Midnight Masquerade Penstemon. And these get to be 36 to 40 inches in height, and they are about 28 to 32 inches in width, hardy in zones 3 through 8 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And here is a photo of what the plant looks like. It is beautiful, and the pollinators love those little bell-shaped light pink blooms. Look at these daisies, the Amazing Daisies Banana Cream. You can see how many buds are on here because they've been deadheaded. Someone has cleaned up these plants and now they're pushing out new blooms. So you can probably even get a secondary flush out of these clearance plants if you take them home and plant them. And if you have a shady garden, they also have lots of hosta on clearance. Now you can still add color and interest in a shady garden through texture and foliage. Now hosta comes in so many different patterns and colors. They come in different sizes, some small, some large, different leaf shapes. So they are a really pretty plant for a shady spot. They are attractive to deer, so they become deer salad. So if you deal with deer, something to be aware of. But again, there are tons of them on clearance, and another plant that is super easy to divide. You can see in this container here, really easy division point. You can get 2 hostas out of that. The same back there. I always look for plants that look like they have multiples in a container or a very easy division point, because that's a great way to make your gardening budget stretch. So look at this. This American Halo hosta right there. You can get 2 plants out of this. So a hosta that was $10.98 would be about $7. If you divide that, you can get 2 plants for about $3.50 a piece. Look at this. Some of the blanket flower, or the Gaillardia, has made its way onto the clearance rack. So these here, the $15.98 ones, would be 50% off. So this would be about $8. And look, you can see there are still tons of blooms on them. And buds. Okay, so there's buds there. This one's getting ready to bloom. That's a great buy. That's a huge perennial too. You can definitely divide that into multiples. And it's less of a risk because you're getting it on clearance, so why not try, right? Anytime you divide a plant, you just want to make sure that you keep it well watered until it starts establishing some roots. They are also starting to get some annuals for later season color, and this is a beauty. I actually grew some from seed in my garden this year. This is a version of Sahara Rudbeckia. It is only an annual, but this would look really pretty in a container refresh as you head into the fall. Look at the blooms on this. Isn't that so pretty? Tons of buds. Let me show you the tag. These are really, really pretty sunset colors. So this is Sunbeckia Sahara Rudbeckia. It's listed as a perennial, but it's probably not super hardy. Zone 7, again, I'm in a 6B, 7A, so this would be a little risky if we had a really bad winter. And they're short stature, only 14 to 16 inches in height, 12 to 14 inches in width, but gorgeous. There are also some roses on the clearance rack. So these are some Easy Elegance roses. This one's called Screaming Neon Red. And so they were $21.98. So they'll be about $11. And look at that. Screaming Neon Red. It looks like a single petal type rose. And it says repeat blooming throughout this season. It likes full sun. Most roses like a very well draining soil and full sun. Gets to be 3 to 4 feet in height, 2 to 3 feet in width. As it fades, it has kind of a pink coloring to it. What else do they have here? Some of these True Bloom. This one's called True Spirit. Looks like a red rose, a landscape rose. Easy care, disease resistant, heat tolerant, and continuous blooming. Again, full sun, and it gets to be, it looks like 3 by 5 in size. Hardy down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. So lots of roses here at my Lowe's to choose from. And of course, the variety and sales are going to vary by location. Oh, rose raspberry cupcake. That looks delicious. Very pretty. Special Rose has a strong raspberry and lemon fragrance, large to medium light pink flowers that will rebloom all season, and excellent disease resistant. That is the problem that I mostly have with roses, is they always get black spot and yellow leaves on me in my garden. So these get to be 4 feet high, 2 to 3 feet wide, and again, they like full sun. But if I were to plant a new rose, it would definitely have to be something fragrant, right? Fragrant roses are the best. Stop and smell the roses. And then there are these Easy Elegance Sunrise Sunset Shrub Rose. These look more like a low-growing ground cover type rose, very similar to like the drift roses. You can see here, very pretty bloom. Let's see how they grow. Hardy to a zone 9, so zones 4 through 9, full sun, pink color. Well, they get to be 3 to 6 feet in height and 4 to 7 feet in width. So no, they definitely are a bigger growing rose. But by looking at them, they have small leaves and they look like they're growing kind of wide, but then they get these shoots. So you definitely have to pay attention to the tags. Even if they look a little bit small and non-threatening now, they'll quickly get out of hand. And some Buddleia or butterfly bush. Now these are the proven winners Pugster line, and the Pugsters are a more compact dwarf version of the butterfly bush. Some of the older varieties can get quite large. We're talking 6 to 8 feet, maybe even upwards of 10 feet tall and wide. And they can grow pretty wild. Some of them are even invasive, but these newer varieties are bred to be more compact and more well behaved. So this one here, the Pugster, this is the Pugster Blue. It has a really pretty violet blue coloring. You can see a little bit there on that bloom. And they get to be, let's see, 2 feet tall and wide and hardy in zones 5 through 9 or down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. They do love sun in order for them to bloom best, and they need a soil that is very well draining. Any sitting water will cause these to rot and die. In fact, I had the Pugster Blue planted in a bed that stays a little bit moist, and I lost my shrub. They're also a little bit late to break dormancy in the spring. I find that usually mid to late May is when they start pushing out new foliage and bloom buds, but then they will bloom all the way through the end of October when we get our first hard frost. You can see this one still has tons of bloom buds. Has a really pretty foliage with a hint of a gray to it, a blue-gray coloring. And this here, let's see how much it is. So $19.98, 50% off. This would be about $10 for a little butterfly bush. And look what just showed up, the mums. Now this is something that I personally would hold off on buying. They look beautiful right now, tons of buds, tightly budded. They require a lot of water. So if you do buy mums, you wanna make sure that you water it morning and night to keep them alive and have them last for you through the fall. Another idea is to take them out of these containers and plant them into a larger planter with more soil. The bigger your container, the more soil, the more moisture it will retain, and your mums will be happier for it. So these are some hanging baskets for $18.98. Well, that brings us to the end of the August inventory here at Lowe's. I hope that you've enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.